Good evening, everyone. I hope you have revised something what we have done in last two classes. You're new, so you'll be provided the access later. So we are dealing with Constitution right now, NCERT basically. And even you, for like you have attended the last class, no, right? So you'll be provided the access. And right now we are doing NCERT, Constitution. So for the old students, before we start the class, let's try to solve these questions. In the context of polity, which one of the following would you accept as the most appropriate definition of liberty? Protection against the tyranny of the political ruler, absence of restraint, opportunity to do whatever one likes, opportunity to develop oneself fully. C, you? D, tell me. What is liberty? Freedom, right? So that we can do whatever we like. So is C option is right to do whatever one likes? No? You cannot go kill someone, no? If you feel like. So C is wrong. UPSC has given D as the answer, to develop oneself fully. But if you go through the Lakshmikant, they say it's absence of restraint also. So there are two options. So even B or D, but UPSC has given the answer as D, opportunity to develop oneself fully. So liberty is that only, right? To develop oneself. Next, the constitutional government is defined by, government by definition is a government by legislature, popular government, multi-party government, limited government. Right, good. At least you have remembered that constitution, what we have marked. It's a limited government, okay? Next, to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity, and integrity of India is a provision made in the. Who agrees with what? Fundamental duties? Preamble? It's fundamental duties. Next, the preamble to the Constitution of India is a part of the Constitution but has no legal effect, not a part of the Constitution and has no legal effect either. A part of the Constitution and has the same legal effect as any other part. A part of the Constitution but has no legal effect independently of other parts. Why it has no legal effect? It was been amended. So is B right or D right? Which is more appropriate, you think? Independent of other parts. D, right? It has no legal effect independently of other parts. This is why it got amended also, 42nd Amendment Act. If it was not a part of the Constitution, how can you amend it then? Right? With reference to the Constitution, consider the following: fundamental rights, fundamental duties, DPSP. Which one of the following Constitution is fulfilled by National Social Assistance Program launched by the government? So this is, I have given you two types of democracy. What does fundamental right gives? Political democracy, right? I have told you it denotes political democracy. What does DPSP denotes? Social and economic democracy. So this is social assistance program. So then what is the answer? DPSP, right? I told you that, right? Last class. What does fundamental right denotes? Political democracy. And DPSP, social and economic democracy, right? So these were asked in last previous year UPSC questions. These were prelims questions, okay? Was it difficult? Little bit? Because we are just reading NCERT right now. Once we do Lakshmikant, the higher advanced books, then we'll have more clarity, okay? So tell me, let's do a quick revision. What are the three powers, discretionary powers of president? Hmm? What? Reconsideration of bill. Which article was that? 74(1). Yeah. And pocket veto, right? Veto power and appointing PM when there is a hung assembly, when there is no clear majority. So these are the three discretionary power of president. Okay. And does the nominated member take part in the election of president? No? Only the elected one? Okay. And what all we have discussed before that? What is part 4A? Duties. Okay. And was it added? Was which article, which amendment act added fundamental duty? 1976, 42nd Amendment Act. Okay. Which article is it? 51A. Okay. So let's move on to the next question. Yes, yesterday you had asked me a question, right? You like if they get disqualified based on 2 years, so what will happen? So once they complete their tenure of sentence, if it is for 3 years or 4 years, from there 6 years they are not able to contest election for 6 years. So this was the case happened in for Rahul Gandhi recently. So they were talking about the disqualification. So once a person gets disqualified on the ground of criminal RP Act, 2 years or more, right? So once he completes his sentence, after that 6 years, he is not eligible to contest for 6 years. Okay? After that he can. So let's move on. So we have done till president. What all we have done till now? We have done constitution. We have done fundamental rights, fundamental duties, preamble, DPSPs, Election Commission of India, executives, and we are doing right now executive only, right? Yeah. So the Vice President of India. The Vice President is elected for 5 years. His selection method is similar to that of President. The only difference is that the member of state legislatures are not part of the state electoral. Why does it say this? So who all did take part in President? Elected or nominated? Only the elected. Here, MLA will not take part. Okay. The Vice President may be removed from his office by a resolution of Rajya Sabha passed by a majority and agreed by the Lok Sabha. So this is important. It should be passed by majority and agreed by Lok Sabha. We'll read about it. This is effective majority, they're talking about it. So this is different from President. President, how is it removed? On what ground President is removed? Violation of Constitution. So it is only mentioned like that President can be removed only for violation of Constitution. Okay. The Vice President acts as the ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha. You know this. Everyone knows this, right? Who is the chairman of Rajya Sabha? Vice President. And takes over the office of President when there is a vacancy by reason of death, resignation, removal by impeachment or otherwise. This is important. When does he become President? When there is a vacancy, okay, by reason of death, resignation or removal by impeachment or otherwise. These are the 4 points when he becomes President. Okay. That is President. He takes over the office of President when there is a vacancy by the reason of death. If he dies, the President dies, or if he resigns, or if he is removed, or otherwise. Okay. The Vice President acts as a President only until a new President is elected. B.D. Jatti acted as President on the death of Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed until a new President was elected. So this is an example, like already it has happened like that. So does he continue for 5 years? Vice President as a President? No. Until unless we elect a new President. Till then. Yeah, come in. Good evening. No issues. Come. So who is the head of the government and head of the state of India? Okay. Who has the real power? Prime Minister. Good. No discussion of government or politics in India would normally take place without mentioning one office, the Prime Minister of India. Can you imagine why this is so? We have already seen earlier in this chapter that President exercises his power only on the advice of the Council of Ministers. Which article was this? 74(1)(a), which says that he will act on the advice given by the Council of Ministers headed by Prime Minister. So can he give it for reconsideration? If he doesn't like it, can he give? He can give. How many times? Only one time. Is it mentioned in the Constitution? Yes, 74(1). It mentions that he can give the bill back for reconsideration. Okay. The Council of Ministers is headed by the Prime Minister. Therefore, as head of the Council of Ministers, the Prime Minister becomes the most important functionary of the government in our country. In a parliamentary form of executive, it is essential that Prime Minister has the support of the majority in the Lok Sabha, right? This support by the majority also makes the Prime Minister very powerful. The moment this support of the majority is lost, the Prime Minister loses the office. For many years after independence, Congress party had the majority in the Lok Sabha and its leader would become the Prime Minister. So we have seen like there was a coalition era also. So since 1989, there have been many occasions when no party had majority in the Lok Sabha. Various political parties have come together and formed a coalition. From 1989, we have seen coalition. But from 2014, we have seen again single party domination in the form of BJP. Okay, that has various political parties have come together and formed a coalition that has majority in the House. In such situations, a leader who is acceptable to most partners of the coalition becomes the Prime Minister. Formally, a leader who has the support of the majority is appointed by the President as Prime Minister. This is important, but he has a discretionary power too. When nobody is able to prove their majority, then he'll choose who will be the Prime Minister from the majority, like number of parties which is available. Okay. So what was first past the post system in PR? Maximum voters, like whoever gets the maximum votes, he'll be elected. So where do we use that? MPs and MLAs. And what about proportional representation? Yeah, it usually chooses the party and it depends on the proportion. But which type of proportional representation we use? Single transferable vote, STV. And for whom do we use this? Rajya Sabha, President, Vice President, Vidhan Parishad. Yeah, right. Okay. The Prime Minister then decides who will be the ministers in the Council of Ministers. So all the power rests with Prime Minister. He'll be the one who will choose the cabinet. The Prime Minister allocates rank and portfolios to the ministers. Depending upon the seniority and political importance, the ministers are given the rank of cabinet ministers, ministers of state, or deputy ministers. These are the three things. It's a level of rank, you can say hierarchy. Cabinet minister is here, minister of state here, deputy minister here, third, right? These are the hierarchy, depending. So you understand, right, the hierarchy? Here, this is cabinet minister, this is ministry of state, and this is deputy minister. Okay, and from here, council of minister would be chosen. Who will be headed by? Prime Minister. Okay, you understand this, right? Okay. In the same manner, chief ministers of the state chooses minister from their party or coalition. So we have spoke about that India is a federal country, not a pure federal, but it's a federal country. So whatever we have at the union, we have at the state too. If we have PM there, we have CM here. And similar ways it performs. Like if they have a parliament there, we have a Vidhan Sabha here. It can be that some state might not have Vidhan Parishad. They just have Vidhan Sabha. There are only 11 state, I think, 10 I believe, which has both the houses, Vidhan Sabha and Vidhan Parishad. Okay. Next, the Prime Minister and all the ministers have to be member of the parliament. This is important. If someone becomes a minister or prime minister without being an MP, such a person has to get elected to the parliament within 6 months. This they have asked in exam. So what does this mean? Even a normal person can become prime minister, but provided that he gets elected to the parliament within 6 months. He has to get elected to the parliament. That means for 6 months, even a normal person can become a prime minister. But he has to get elected to the parliament within 6 months. Otherwise, he ceases to operate. Okay. Let's read this. There were some members in the Constituent Assembly who felt that ministers should be elected by the legislature and not selected by the Prime Minister or Chief Minister. Swiss system under which the legislature elects the executive for a certain period. So we have, what we do is the Prime Minister we choose and he'll choose the cabinet. But in Swiss system, which the legislature elects the executive, they only elect who will be the Council of Ministers, is to my mind the best form of government for the provinces. The system of the single transferable vote is the best system that can be adopted for the appointment of executive, because in that all interests will be represented and no party in the legislature will have any occasion to feel that it is not represented. This was the debate by Begum Aizaz Rasool. Next is, this is again important, what should be the size of Council of Minister? So we know that there is a Council of Minister headed by the Chief Prime Minister. So what should be the size? Before 91st Amendment Act, this is important, they have asked this. Before this, the size of the Council of Ministers was determined according to exigencies of time and requirement of the situation, but this led to very large size of the Council of Ministers. Besides, when no party had a clear majority, there was a temptation to win over the support of the Member of Parliament by giving them ministerial positions, as there was no restrictions on the number of members of the Council of Ministers. So they were facing issues when they were coalition party, since the strength was not fixed for Council of Ministers. This was happening in many states. Therefore, an amendment was made that the Council of Ministers shall not exceed 15% of total members of the House of the People. So this is, so what did 91st Amendment Act bring? Yeah, write it. 91st Amendment Act. What was the hierarchy of ministers? Cabinet Minister, then Ministry of State, then Deputy Minister. Okay. Done? In this chapter on the legislature, you will study in detail the various mechanisms through which the parliament controls the executive. We know that it is interdependent. We have read, right? Executive is dependent on legislature is dependent on executive. But remember that the most important feature of parliamentary executive is that the executive is routinely under the control and supervision of legislature. So this is the most important feature. And how? We'll learn it in the next chapter. The Council of Ministers is collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. This they have asked in the exam. So is Council of Minister, it's a article also. So it's mentioned in the Constitution itself. So the question was, is Council of Ministers collectively responsible to the Parliament or to the Lok Sabha? Just to the Lok Sabha. It is mentioned in the Constitution, not to the Parliament. That means not to the Rajya Sabha, just to the Lok Sabha. This provision means that a ministry this provision means that a ministry which loses confidence of the Lok Sabha is obliged to resign, right? The principle indicates that a ministry is an executive committee of the Parliament and it collectively governs on behalf of the Parliament. Collective responsibility is based on the principle of solidarity of cabinet. So our Parliament works on this collective responsibility principle. It implies that A vote of no confidence, even against a single minister, leads to the resignation of entire council of minister, because they have a collective responsibility. The whole council of minister has a collective responsibility. If a vote of confidence has been passed and it gets approved, the whole council of minister will resign. That is the fall of government itself, that the government has lost its majority or confidence. Okay. It also indicates that if a minister does not agree with a policy or a decision of the cabinet, he or she must either accept the decision or resign. Have you read that in anti-defection law? There were 4 clauses in anti-defection law which I was saying. Party whip, he has to agree with the party decision, otherwise he'll be defected. We had read about 4 anti-defection law, like what all those were. In newspaper we had read. I've shown you. So in that it also says the party whip is mentioned. Like if you have elected from a party BJP and you don't feel like you should vote for the bill, you can either abstain yourself or you should vote for the bill. You cannot say that I don't want to vote. You cannot vote against the bill. That is called party whip. This is why you have come for majority there. Okay. It also indicates that if a minister does not agree with a policy or decision of the cabinet, he must either accept or resign. It is binding on all ministers to pursue or agree to a policy for which there is a collective responsibility. Okay. In India, the Prime Minister enjoys a preeminent place in the government. The Council of Ministers cannot exist without a Prime Minister. That means if there is a vacancy in the Council of Ministers, that is okay. It can be fulfilled. But if there is a vacancy in Prime Minister, it is not okay. The whole Council of Ministers will come down because he is the head. So if you go to a war, if you don't have a Senapati, that itself is a defeat, right? It means that way. Okay. The Council of Ministers comes into existence only after the Prime Minister has taken the oath of the office. This is why he chooses the Council of Ministers. Only after the Prime Minister has taken the oath of the office. The death or resignation of the Prime Minister automatically brings about the dissolution of Council of Ministers. See, this they have asked in the exam. The death or resignation of the Prime Minister automatically brings about the dissolution of Council of Ministers. But the demise, dismissal or resignation of the ministers only creates a ministerial vacancy. If Senapati dies, the whole war is lost. But if a Sipahi, if he loses, still the war is on. It means this. The death and resignation, these are the two things. Write this. Next is the Prime Minister acts as a link between the Council of Ministers on one hand and the President as well as the Parliament on the other hand. So Prime Minister is very important. It's mentioned in 78 Article 78. It is this role of Prime Minister which led Pandit Nehru to describe him as the linchpin of the government. Who is described as the linchpin of the government? Prime Minister. Okay. It is also the constitutional obligation of the Prime Minister to communicate to the President all decisions of the Council of Ministers relating to the administration of the affair of the Union and proposals for legislation. This is again Article 78. We'll read about it, don't worry. But you do remember that Article 78 says that all the things, whatever is happening in the parliament, all the decisions taken should be communicated to the president via prime minister. Okay? The prime minister is involved in all crucial decisions of the government and decides on the policies of the government. Thus, the power wielded by the prime minister flows from various sources: control over the council of ministers, leadership of the Lok Sabha, command over the bureaucratic machine, access to media, projection of personalities during election, projection as national leaders during international cemetery, as well as foreign visit. So, can you imagine all the power with respect to present honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi? So, you can see this control over the council of ministers. We have seen the debate in the parliament. Leadership of the Lok Sabha, he represents the Lok Sabha. Command over the bureaucratic machine, he has the whole power over the which executives are we are talking about. Which type of executives are bureaucrats? Permanent bureaucrats. Access to media, projection of personalities during election, we have seen it. Projection as national leader during international cemetery, whenever there is something. Personalities during election, we have seen, like during elections, we have seen, right, vote for Modi. Or charismatic leaders, they say, not the party they vote for the person. So before this, there were many charismatic leaders like Pandit Nehru, Indira Gandhi, and now we have this Narendra Modi. Projection as national leader during international cemetery as well as foreign, this you understand, right? However, the power which the Prime Minister wields and actually puts into use depends upon the prevailing political condition. The position of Prime Minister and Council of Ministers has been unaccessible whenever a single political party has secured majority in the Lok Sabha. However, this has not been the case when government has been led by coalition of political parties since 1989. So we remember the dates, okay? From 1989 we have seen coalition party, and from 2014 we have seen again single party rule. So before 1989 we had single party rule. Yeah, it in between Janata Dal had come, but it was a single party rule. Okay. Many of this government could not remain in power for the full term of the Lok Sabha. They were either removed or they resigned due to loss of support of the majority. These developments have affected the working of the parliamentary executives. In the first place, this development have resulted in the growing discretionary role of the president in the selection of prime minister. So he had a discretionary role, right? Second, the coalition nature of the Indian politics in this period has necessitated much more consultation between political partners, leading to erosion of prime ministerial authority, because every political party will put their weight. Okay, since I have this much of seats, you have to get this kind of policies, which will get them more support in their regional areas. So this was a problem that time. This they have asked in the exams also. Like, what was the reason like coalition government doesn't work properly? Because there are many leaders and many political parties coming together to form the government. So one policy cannot be fulfilled. So you have to think about all types of policies, and to appease a different section of population and the leaders also. Thirdly, it has also brought restrictions on various prerogatives of the prime minister, like choosing the minister and deciding their rank and portfolio. So this is obvious because it's a coalition government. Everyone will want to become a deputy prime minister. There was a rank called deputy prime minister in between, which is not mentioned in constitution at all. So they had to create one just to appease a person. Okay, we are giving you this post. Fourthly, even the policies and programs of the government cannot be decided by the prime minister alone. This is also important. Political parties of different ideologies come together both as pre-poll and post-poll allies to form government. Policies are framed after a lot of negotiation and compromises among the allies. In this process, the prime minister has to act more as a negotiator than a leader of the government. So whenever there is a coalition party, the different ideologies mix up. So he has to act more as a negotiator than as a leader. Okay. At the state level, a similar parliamentary executive exists, though with some variation. The most important variation is that there is a governor. Yeah.
What if its negotiations fails? A coalition government form. If some party people they are not willing to support him or to make him prime minister, what happens?
No confidence motion will they'll pass. And if the present government and the coalition they don't, you know, if they don't have the majority to prove, the whole party whichever is ruling the coalition they will come down, and again snap elections, or till that time the prime minister will give the president will give an opportunity to any other parties, can you prove majority? If they also cannot prove it, then snap election will happen. Okay. At, at state level, a similar parliamentary executive exists, though with some variation. The most important variation is that there is a governor of the state appointed by the president. So we know how president is elected, right? He's an elected member. But in state also we should have someone similar to president, governor. Is he an elected or a selected member? Like who is he? He's not even a selected elected. He's just appointed by the president on the advice of central government. So he's a nominee of a central government. So you might be hearing in the news there are cases going on in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, like the governor is not giving assent to a lot of bills, or is passing the bill to the president for consideration. So this is the problem, because the governor is not elected. He's a nominee of central government appointed by the president himself. So you remember this. This is important. That there is a governor of state appointed by the president on the advice of central government. He's on the advice. Though the chief minister, like the prime minister, is a leader of a majority party in the assembly, the governor has more discretionary power. However, the main principle of parliamentary system operates at state level too. We know that. Okay. We have a federal structure. Whatever we have at the union, we have at the state. But governor has more discretionary power compared to president in state. Right? Only three power we know: the discretionary power of president. We know that, right? Clearly, veto power, reconsideration, and PM when there is a hung assembly or there is no clear majority. So these are the only three discretionary power he has. But when we'll read about governor, we'll get to know that he has more discretionary power. Okay. So next is, this is what everyone is aspiring for, the bureaucracy. Okay, David, you read.
Who implements the decision of ministers? The executive organ of the government includes the prime minister, the ministers, and a large organ called the bureaucracy or the administrative machinery. To underline the difference between the machinery and the military service is described as civil service. Trained and skilled officers who work as permanent employees of the government are assigned the task of assisting the ministers in formulating policies and implementing these policies. In a democracy, the elected representatives and the ministers are in charge of government, and the administration is under their control and supervision. In the parliamentary system, the legislature also exercises control over the administration. The administrative officers cannot act in violation of the policies adopted by the legislature. It is the responsibility of the ministers to retain political control over the administration. India has established provisional administrative machinery. At the same time, this machinery is made politically accountable. The bureaucracy is also expected to be politically neutral. This means that the bureaucracy will not take any political positions on policy matters. In democracy, it is always possible that a party is defeated in elections and the new government wants to opt for new policies in the place of policies of the previous government. In such a situation, it is the responsibility of the administrative machinery to faithfully and efficiently participate in drafting the policy and in its implementation.
Yeah, so whenever a party steps down, another party comes, they'll have their own set of schemes. It might be similar only for welfare, but the name will change, criteria will change, the amount of money put in, like the whatever the money is there, it will change, right? So for that we need a bureaucracy, like permanent executive, to act unbiased and in a in a more truthful way, and it should not be party aligned. No bureaucrats should be party aligned. Like they should not work only for a government. So we have seen commonly that whenever a new party comes, there is a reshuffling of the bureaucrats. So some 70 IPS, IAS got reshuffled. So this is because they want their own men, so that they can perform more in a more efficient and better way. Okay.
The Indian bureaucracy today is an enormously complex system. It consists of the all Indian services, state services, employees of the local governments, and technical and managerial staff running public sector undertakings. Makers of our constitution were aware of the importance of the non-partisan and professional bureaucracy. They also wanted the members of the civil services or bureaucracy to be impartially selected on the basis of merit. So the Indian Public Service Commission has been entrusted with the task of conducting the process of recruitment of the civil servants for the government of India.
So UPSC is a constitutional body or not? It's a constitutional body. So it recruits Group A and Group B officers. All India services and Group A, Group B officers. Okay. Yeah.
Similar public service commissions are provided for the state also. Members of the public service commissions are appointed for a fixed term. Their removal or suspension is subject to subject to through inquiry.
Thorough inquiry.
Judge of the Supreme Court.
So we'll read about them, like how they are removed. The UPSC members and the chairman, even they can be removed. So they have a term of 6 years, but they can be removed before that. But we need a inquiry into it by a judge of Supreme Court itself. So we'll read about it in detail when we go into the advanced book. Okay.
While efficiency and merit are the norms for the recruitment, the Constitution also ensures that all sections of the society, including the weaker sections, have an opportunity to be part of the public bureaucracy. For this purpose, the Constitution has provided for reservation of jobs for the Dalits and Adivasis. Subsequently, reservations have also been provided for women and other backward classes. These provisions ensure that the bureaucracy will be more representative and social inequalities will not come in the way of recruitment to the civil.
So, which is the new reservation category which they have added? Which article? Which amendment? 103. Yeah. Okay. So this is the classification of civil services. All India services. Indian. So yeah, there's one more IFOS. Central services, Indian foreign services, revenue services, state services, sale tax officers. So this is the classification of civil services. These are the permanent executive. Next.
Persons selected by the UPSC for Indian Administrative Service and the Indian Police Service constitute the backbone of the higher level bureaucracy in the state. You may know that the collector of a district is the most important officer of the government at the district level. Do you know that the collector is normally an IAS officer and that the office is governed by the service conditions laid down by the central government? An IAS or IPS officer is assigned to a particular state where he or she works under the supervision of the state government. However, the IAS or IPS officers are appointed by the central government. They can go back into the service of the central government, and most importantly, only the central government can take disciplinary action against them. This means that the key administrative officers of the states are under the supervision and control of the central government. Apart from the IAS and the IPS officers appointed by the UPSC, the administration of the state is looked after by the officers appointed through the state public service commissions. As we shall study later in the chapter on federalism, this feature of the bureaucracy strengthens the control of the central government over the administration of the states.
So why they have come up with All India Service was for this reason only, to strengthen the federalism. A person who is trained and appointed by central government, but he'll go work for the state, so that he can fulfill all the criteria, whatever the policies which have been made at the center, it can be flowed down to the lower level, and he is the chain between state and center. Okay.
The bureaucracy is an instrument through which welfare policies of the government must reach the people. But most often it is so powerful that the people are afraid of approaching the bureaucracy, approaching the government officer. It is common experience of the people that bureaucracy is insensitive to demands and expectations of the ordinary citizen. Only if the democratically elected government Some of these problems can be effectively handled. On the other hand, too much political interference turns the bureaucracy into an instrument in the hands of the politician.
So both are wrong, right? Like, we should have a delicate balance. Politicians should interfere when it is required, not always. And bureaucrats should act like normal people, not like, you know, rajas or maharajas, which usually they say, not not now, but it has been seen like that. Okay.
Though the Constitution has created independent machinery for recruitment, many people think that there is no provision for protecting the civil servants from political interference in the performance of their duties. It is also felt that enough provisions are not there to ensure the accountability of the bureaucracy to the citizen. There is an expectation that measures like the right to information may take the bureaucracy a little more responsive and accountable.
So there were many reforms for the bureaucracy. So in that, they had mentioned that 3 years of tenure, fixed tenure, should be provided, so that less political interference can be seen. But that has not been fulfilled. Like 3 years, if a bureaucrat stays at a place, he can do a lot of changes. He can bring a lot of changes. The conclusion: the modern executive is a very powerful institution of the government. The executive enjoys greater power compared to other organs of the government. This generates a greater need to have democratic control over the executive. The makers of our constitution thought with foresight that the executive must be put firmly under regular supervision and control. Thus, a parliamentary executive was chosen. Periodic election, constitutional limits over the exercise of power, and democratic politics have ensured that executive organ cannot become unresponsive. Okay? So we'll move on to the next chapter. So what all we have learned till now: constitution, fundamental rights, election commission, and now executives. So till here, so any doubt? Okay. Yeah, you read the introduction. We are reading in legislature now. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have already studied the importance of election and the method of election adopted in India. Legislatures are elected by the people and work on behalf of the people. In this chapter, you will study how elected legislatures function and help in maintaining democratic government. You will also learn about the composition and functioning of the parliament and state legislature in India and their importance in democratic government. After reading this chapter, you would know the importance of the legislature, the function and powers of the Parliament of India, the law-making procedure, how the Parliament controls the executive, and how the Parliament regulates itself.
Yeah. So what all we are going to understand: the importance of legislature, why legislature is important. Next, the function and power of Parliament of India. There are some powers with the Parliament. The law-making procedure, how law is made in India. How the Parliament controls the executive. This is important. Executive cannot overreach their power. So there's some power with the Parliament too to control executives, and how Parliament regulates itself also. So 5 things we will read. Okay. Yeah.
Why do we need a parliament? Legislation is not merely a law-making body. Law-making is but one of the functions of the legislation. It is the center of all democratic political process. It is packed with actions, walkouts, protest, demonstration, and
Unanimity.
unanimity, consent, and cooperation. All this serve very vital purpose. Indeed, a genuine democracy is inconceivable without a representative, efficient, and effective legislature. The
So-
legislature also helps people in holding the representatives accountable. This is indeed a very basic representative democracy. Yet,
So what it does is, it makes sure that executives are accountable to the people, legislature. If there is any law, like for example, if any law which is passed against the will of the people, or it will harm the greater section of society, the opposition party has a big role to play in the parliament. Then they can raise their voice, they can go for, this dharna, whatever protest, or they can even call for repassing passage of the bill if it is required. Yeah.
In most democracies, legislatures are losing central place to the executive. In India too, the cabinet initiates policies, sets the agenda for governance and carries them through. This had led some critics to remark that the parliament has declined, but even very strong cabinets must retain majority in the legislature. A strong leader has to face the parliament and answer to the satisfaction of the parliament. Herein lies the democratic potential of the parliament. It is recognized as one of the most democratic and open forum of debate. On account of its composition, it is the most representative of all organs of the government. It is above all vested with the power to choose and dismiss the government.
Yeah, so on account of its composition, it is the most representative of all organs because it doesn't have only the ruling party, it has the opposition also and other MPs who have come from all the section, even the independent MPs, right? In all above vests with the power to choose and dismiss the government. The parliament has the power to choose and dismiss the government because through no confidence motion, the ruling party can come down and the president can give the opportunity to different parties to prove the majority. So this is why it says.
Why do we, why do we need two houses of parliament? The term parliament refers to the national legislature. The legislature of the state is described as state legislature. The parliament in India has two houses. When there are two houses of the legislature, it is called bicameral legislature. The two houses of the India parliament are the councils of states, are the Rajya Sabha, and the House of People or the Lok Sabha. The constitution has given the state the option of establishing either a unicameral or bicameral legislature. At present, only 7 states have bicameral legislature.
So the constitution of the state has given this power, but we'll read like how it is made, like how the Vidhan Parishad comes into picture when and how it is abolished also.
At present, there are 10 states.
Yeah, 10 states. Yeah.
Countries with large size and much diversity usually prefer to have two houses of the national legislature to give representation to all sections in the society and to give representation to all geographical region or part of the country. A bicameral legislature has one more advantage. A bicameral legislature make it possible to have every decision reconsidered.
Yeah, this is important. Like there's a process, like there are different types of bills. Whenever an ordinary bill is passed, there are different types of bills like ordinary bill, money bill, constitutional amendment bill. So whenever an ordinary bill is passed, so there are two houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So Lok Sabha is the most important because it is collectively what we had read, right? The ministers are collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. So if they have passed a bill, and if it is an ordinary bill, Rajya Sabha has the power to resend it back again, like you for the consideration. They can accept it or not. But for money bill, Rajya Sabha has no say. They have to just pass the bill. So whatever the decision for the money bill, it's taken from the Lok Sabha. That's all. Rajya Sabha has no say. But in the ordinary bill, Rajya Sabha has a lot of say. They can actually stop the bill. But again, there's a catch. We have a joint sitting. So we'll read about that. But in the constitutional amendment bill, again, Rajya Sabha has a lot of power. If they say that we don't like it and they don't have the majority there, the bill will not be passed. The only bill where Rajya Sabha has no say that it is money bill. Only remember this now, for now. Rajya Sabha has no power with regarding only one bill, that is money bill. And rest, it has power. So this is why a bicameral legislature makes it possible to have every decision reconsidered. Okay? Yeah.
Every decision taken by one house goes to the other house for its decision. This means that every bill and policy could be discussed twice. This ensures a double check on every matter. Even if one house takes a decision in haste, the decision will come for a discussion in the other house and reconsideration will be possible. Rajya Sabha. Each of the two houses of parliament has two different bases of representation. The Rajya Sabha represents the state of India.
Yeah, this is important.
It is an indirectly elected body. Residents of the states elect members to the state legislative assembly. The elected members of state legislative assembly in turn elect
So this is the election, that indirect election, okay?
Like
How?
MLAs will elect MPs, sir.
Yeah, for the Rajya Sabha. Only for the Rajya Sabha. For Lok Sabha, directly FTP, this first past the post system. We have a constituency, we vote, whoever has the maximum votes, majority, not the majority, the maximum votes, he will go to the Lok Sabha. But for Rajya Sabha, yeah, the state MLAs will vote. They will vote. So state MLAs are elected by the normal peoples. So we know MLA and MP are elected by FT, like first past the post system. So this state MLAs will elect them in Rajya Sabha, and there are some members nominated too, 12 members. Okay.
We can imagine two different principles of representation in the second schedule. One way is to give equal representation to all the parts of country irrespective of their size or population. We may call this a symmetrical representation.
Yeah, wait. So this happens in USA. USA, every state has two representation. So they have like 50 or 51, I think, no? States. 50 states. So every state has two representation. It is fixed, irrespective of their population. But in India, we have not chosen that way. Okay.
On the other hand, parts of the country may be given representation according to the population. This is the second method, means that the region or parts having larger population would have more representation in the second chamber than the regions having less population. In the USA, every state has equal representation in the Senate. This ensures equality of all the states, but this also means that a small state could have same representation as the larger state. The system of the representation adopted for the Rajya Sabha is different from that in the USA. The number of members to be elected for each state has been fixed by the fourth schedule of the Constitution.
Yeah, so this is important. Fourth schedule of the Constitution has fixed the number of members which have be elected from each state. So if this question comes, you need to remember, it is mentioned in the Constitution, Schedule 4. We'll read about the Schedule 1 to, there are I think 13 or 12, how many schedules? 12, right? So 12 schedules we'll read about it, which all schedules, what they talk about. But fourth schedule talks about the number of members to be elected from each state for Rajya Sabha. Okay? It is for Rajya Sabha.
What would happen if we were to follow the American system of equality of representation in the Rajya Sabha? Uttar Pradesh, with a population of
So lakhs, yeah.
lakhs, would get seats equal to the Sikkim. Those population is 6.1 lakhs. The framers of the constitution wanted to prevent such discrepancy. State with larger population get more representatives than state with smaller population get. Thus, a more populous state like Uttar Pradesh sends 31 members to the Rajya Sabha, while a smaller or less populous state like Sikkim has one seat in the Rajya Sabha.
So this you understood, right? Why we have chosen this way. In USA, it is the equal, like every state will have two votes, equal, irrespective of the size and the population. But in India, we have not chosen that. For India, population matters. So this is why we have given like representation according to the population size. Okay.
Members of the Rajya Sabha are elected for a term of 6 years.
Yeah. So, what about Lok Sabha
A year.
and Rajya Sabha?
6 years. They can get re-elected. All members of the Rajya Sabha do not complete their terms at the same time. Every 2 years, 1/3 of the members of the Rajya Sabha complete their term, and the elections are held for those 1/3 seats only.
So this is important. Like every 6 years means every 2 years 1/3 will resign and go, and 1/3 election will happen. So it's not like all the Rajya Sabha will be like everyone vacate in one time. No, 1/3 every 2 years. But how long they'll be elected for? 6 years. So two criteria. Okay.
Thus, the Rajya Sabha is never fully dissolved. Therefore, it is called permanent House of the Parliament.
So why it is called permanent House of the Parliament? Now you know it.
Every 1/3.
Because every second year 1/3 will resign and they'll again re-elected or they'll go for the election. Okay.
The advantage of this arrangement is that even when the Lok Sabha is dissolved and elections are yet to take place, the meeting of the Rajya Sabha can be called and urgent business can be conducted. Apart from the elected members, Rajya Sabha also have 12 nominated members. The president nominates these members. These nominations are made from among those persons who have made their mark in the field of literacy, science, art, and social service.
So they have nominated members too. Okay. So we had read in the president. How is he elected? Who elects president? MPs and MLAs, right? Only the elected, not the nominated. So these are the nominated one they're talking about. They will not vote for the election of president. Okay. Next.
Lok Sabha. The Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies are directly elected by the people.
So now you will remember the difference, right? Rajya Sabha is indirectly elected. Lok Sabha,
Directly elected.
and you know the system also now. First past the post system, preferential representation, single transferable vote. Okay, difference is clear. Next.
For the purpose of election, the entire country, state in case of state legislative assembly, is divided into territorial constituency of roughly equal
Population. Who does this? Drawing the territorial constituencies. Who does this? Delimitation Commission. Right.
one representative is elected for each constituency through universal adult suffrage, where the value of vote of every individual would be equal to another. At present, there are 543 constituency. This number has not changed since 1971 census. The Lok Sabha is elected for a period of 5 years. This is the maximum. We have seen in the chapter on the executive that before the completion of 5 years, the Lok Sabha can be dissolved if no party or coalition can form the government, or if the Prime Minister advises the President to dissolve the Lok Sabha and hold fresh elections.
So even the Prime Minister can advise the President that dissolve the House before 5 years. So this gives the present government more advantage because they are more prepared for the election, right? This is why even the Prime Minister can say that dissolve